Hi, welcome to another Better Conversations podcast with the founders. We are just here to have conversations on the everyday things we see and apply our youthful wisdom to share our thoughts.
Hello everyone. Today we've got a friend of the podcast, Jacob. He's been on here before. He's a close personal friend of mine, and today we're going to be discussing something that us two have had discussions of many times before in our private, and we're just sitting and chilling. And that is education the answer to escaping poverty? So, is more education the answer to escaping poverty? So Jacob, if you want to present your thoughts and arguments.
Of course. Thanks, Paul. More than happy to. With this topic, I think my arguments mainly center around a person's journey if they're coming from a background that isn't conducive to higher learning. And I guess what I mean by that is put yourself in the mindset of somebody coming from what we'd class a lower socioeconomic background and think of their journey through their prepubescent and their adolescent life. Think about the sort of schools that they would go to. Think about the career options that is going to be presented to them. What we find a lot of the time is the career options that are presented to them aren't of the standard to help these young people believe that they can actually make a positive difference in the world. Whereas when we find people that come from families that are more well off, they've got access to, better schooling, but also if you come from a quite wealthy family, you're able to go to private school and access those networks from your school system, but also inherent within the curriculum is an idea and understanding that you should be confident to enter the workplace and to make a difference. And that's lacking. I find that that's lacking quite a lot when you're looking at people from the lower socioeconomic backgrounds within the schooling system. And if we're trying to tackle things like poverty, part of the big thing about poverty is it's cyclical, right? Somebody grows up in poverty, they go to not a great school, they're lacking confidence, they have children, and the cycle repeats and it goes over and over and over again. So my big solution is it all starts with education. It all starts with presenting young people with the best possible light to be able to succeed no matter their circumstances.
Right.
Okay.
So, Tavian, do you want to respond, or do you want to hear my thoughts on what Jacob said?
I think it would be good to hear your thoughts as well, and then I might ask Jacob a few more questions.
Okay, so my thoughts on this are, Jacob is right to a certain extent that we need more careers education, that kind of stuff. My issue is that there are a lot of times when those things are offered to us, but people don't have the want and the desire to actually partake in those type of events or go to those type of situations. They're willing to accept and live their life. And I'm not here to judge anyone and say that they're wrong for that. But I'm saying that those things can be on the table and some people still wouldn't take it, even if it's right there in front of them. You can have careers days at schools where you can have firefighters, bankers, lawyers talking about what they do in their job. And some kids will just sit there and thinking, oh, look at him in his posh suit. Who does he think he is coming in to talk to us? So how do to me, you can't help those kids. Those kids are, I don't know, they're kind of lost, in my opinion. I don't know. To me, further education isn't the answer to that problem because they already dislike education. So you're just feeding them more of something that they don't like. So over to you, Tavian.
Yeah, I guess one of the key points that you pointed out, Jacob, there, which is something that I definitely do agree with, is the sort of recursive nature of poverty. Have you ever thought about sort of some of the drivers as to why? Do you think it's actually the environment that leads to that recursive nature, or do you think it's the individuals inside of that environment?
So I think both play a part, but I think environment has a bigger impact, and we've got to look at this from multiple angles. And when I say the environment has a big factor, it's small things within their environment that compound up into having a big impact on a person's ability to succeed and to make it out of poverty. So if you take something even as small as having a place to study, when you're at school, a place to do homework, a place to be able to revise. We take things like laptops and phones for granted, but we still
Mm.
have huge levels of digital poverty in this country, and children that aren't able to access things like phones and laptops. And then you see the cycle of children struggling with homework, with revision. That puts them back in class. That sets them behind the class behind the rest of the class. Then you've got, that takes a knock on their confidence. Then we're dealing with things like behavioral issues that might come about as a result of not believing that they could succeed within the classroom. And then we're going down a slippery slope. As that confidence levels drop, then the lack of the belief system, or the ability to believe that they can make something out of their life, or that there's more out there in the world apart from a life of poverty, that also decreases. Like when Paul mentions somebody coming in on a careers day to talk to the students, and the students thinking, oh, this is just a guy in a suit. Part of that is because of their low confidence levels, their low belief system, the belief that if being able to be rich, or being able to be out of the poverty system, is something for an other group. It's something for a group that's not, it's almost the belief that it's a luck of the draw situation. And I think that all stems from not having an environment that's conducive to success.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I guess for the kids that are in those sort of low socioeconomic backgrounds, in those type of environments, I guess there is I am sort of starting to think outside the box. I guess is there potentially a solution that says, do we just pull them out of that environment? So I know that sounds a bit crazy, but we kind of do that with people in the most detrimental situations. So people that are born to mothers that are alcoholics, or prostitutes, or things like that. When you see kids like that, they get pulled out of that environment, they get put into foster care, they get put into adoption. And those solutions, funny enough, sometimes hurt the person more, but sometimes you find that they're actually beneficial. And there's a food of thought that's making me think, if it's our responsibility, I guess, so if we're just dealing with maybe UK citizens, so I'm not thinking about other countries, is there a school of thought that says, do we just pull these children out of those environments before it's too late? Do we actually force them to move? Do we actually facilitate the schemes by which they're able to move out of that environment rather than grow up in it? Is that our responsibility to do? That's a question, I guess, for is it our responsibility to do that?
I think that's doing a lot. First of all, is like, how are you gonna fund that? Secondly, is that even moral? Just removing parents, like kids from parents and their parents' household, just because their parents aren't encouraging them to have the universal standard metric of success.
But then, to respond to that quickly.
Go ahead.
No. But just to respond to that quickly, are we doing that for a long-term success, or are we actually technically maybe stopping a future criminal, or a future, like, just enemy to society by doing that in the first place? I guess that's a like response.
I could respond to that, but I'll let Jacob go.
Okay. You're bringing up an excellent point, Tavian. My argument is that is part of what the education system should be doing. Part of if people are born into a not great situation, and sometimes that's not even the fault of parents, right? I don't think it's smart to say that parents in poverty shouldn't be allowed to have children. I don't think I think it's very dependent on the situation. But what the education system should be doing is saying, okay, doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your situation. We are going to provide you with an equal playing field, and as good as good a chance of success as possible. Obviously, there's natural talent, natural ability comes into it, but the education system should be this sort of great social leveler. This idea that, if you want to build a system that acts a lot like the English football pyramid system, right? So, in theory, in the football pyramid, somebody in the team in the conference, if they're good enough, they could, win the conference, win League Two, League One, go all the way up and win Champions League, right? That's in theory. And I think the education system. Hold on. Let me land.
Have you not seen 3 in a row by the Billionaires? 3 in a row and a three-peat in the same season by the Billionaires. What are you talking about?
Let me land. So that's the theory behind the English football system. In practice, ignore the practice, but the theory. The theory is consistent, right? That should be the same idea behind the education system. If you provide students with an opportunity that if they're able to work hard and be successful, then, it's a straight shot to whatever they want to achieve. Sometimes, though, we have an education system that isn't instilling young people with the confidence for that to be the case. So it's already over before it even starts.
See, that's why I disagree, though, because without going into too much of all 3 of our backgrounds, all 3 of us don't come from the most elitist backgrounds. All 3 of us come from what are, by let's say the HMR standards would say, poor socioeconomic backgrounds, right? All 3 of us are doing well and are making it in life. Why is that? Because we had a want and desire to succeed. I had a want and desire to succeed and make it, so I focused and paid attention in school. Same thing goes for you, Jacob. Same thing goes for you, Tavian. And actually, I would actually argue, Jacob, that the education system is actually partially in favor of helping those who are a bit low in confidence or have a bit less ability. Because in set 1 and set 2 classes, those classes are maxed out with 30 kids, 31, 32 kids, when it's supposed to be about 28 to 30. And in the lower sets, they actually have fewer people in the class, about 10 to 15 to maybe 16 people in the class, right? And that's so the teacher can actually get more contact time with each individual student. That's the perks of private school. You get smaller classes so that the teacher gets more contact time. So they're actually getting more perks at a lower level so that the teachers can actually help boost up their ability. So to me, that's actually in favor of them already.
But I think we also, maybe that hasn't been mentioned, something that hasn't been mentioned is the impact of the area or the social area of which the educational system has to deal with. So for example, if you come from a area that is of good social status, where you have parents that are walking in with kids and their parents are doctors, nurses, engineers, the school doesn't have to put up with as much with maybe a school that has parents walking in that aren't from that same sort of level background, which means I think those type of schools are unfortunately under a lot more pressure and unfortunately can't deliver that leveling, I guess, that you would expect. I think in the ideal world, education is the leveler. I do actually agree with you, Jacob, on that. I think in the ideal world, because education, everyone has access, hopefully everyone has access to be able to learn the exact same things, the exact same curriculum. And actually, the power of technology and digital technologies have allowed us to actually, all of us go onto Google, type in something and we can find something else. So education is really that social leveler in some sense, that someone who's poor can still have access to the same knowledge as someone who's rich. But I think, unfortunately, the efficiency of which we can turn that knowledge into something that's actually productive, that's still going to be highly skewed towards someone who's from a much better social class.
I think I actually agree with you pretty much with everything you just said, Tavian. And I think part of the reason that is because of the way we look at education, right? Currently, there's an assumption within the education system that success equals academically gifted, right? The people that are at the top of the class that have the most focus on them, the ones that are able to access, maybe it's additional careers guidance, maybe, it's one-to-one mentoring, whatever the case may be. Those at what we call the high ability of the school system are those that are academically gifted. Now, we live in a society where you can be perfectly successful without being academically gifted. We live in a society where we need vocational talent as much as we do academic talent. But it seems to be the vocational route is only looked at once you fail the academic route. So once students already have their confidence knocked back and are sent to the lower sets and are being told by peers, by teachers, you're not going to make it, then maybe they'll be like, oh, well, okay, maybe I could, maybe I could be a plumber or maybe I could be a lorry driver, when these skills are just as valued in the real world as academia, and they should be celebrated for it.
Go ahead, David.
No, you can go ahead. I was thinking, I guess, in terms of changing that view as well. Do we end up putting ourselves in a danger where then we go back to that original point you make, where we limit those who don't have the ability? I guess it all comes down to, because this is where the individual comes in as well, like what Paul was saying. Because do people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds tend to do lower socioeconomic jobs? And if that is a trend, is it beneficial to change that? I know that sounds like a harsh question as well. Is it beneficial to bring those individuals to the same level that, I know it sounds harsh, is it beneficial to bring those individuals to the same level that those from higher socioeconomic classes benefit from? In a sense, should they be able to enjoy those benefits? And if they do, can they handle those benefits in the same way that they do? Which sounds harsh.
Jacob, answer that.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so
I'm here for.
I think it. So, firstly, I disagree with you. I absolutely disagree. I do think, in terms of your background, should never dictate your ability to take your life wherever you want to take it. Right? If you've got the ability, you should be able to succeed. But I'm going to put that aside, just because I also want to mention. And I need to think of my next words carefully, I guess. But if we're looking at those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, we're talking specifically about students that lack confidence to be able to succeed. And what the central debate is, where has that lack of confidence come from, and is it your fault if you don't turn things around? If you don't recognize that you're on a path that isn't going to get you out of poverty, if you don't do anything about it, where does the fault lie? And I think part of answering that question is really looking at the limited resources within the schooling system within lower socioeconomic backgrounds and deciding how can we still make use of the resources we have, and if we are lacking resources, whether it's local government, whether it's national government, or whether it's the private sector, where can they supplement these resources? And where I'm taking this is an idea that you could, and I'm speaking here. I'm going to speak from an experience that I've seen of having students low in confidence, not engaging with the class, not having that self-belief, so you're acting out, you're causing behavioral issues. As soon as you take them out of that school environment and take them to an environment where they're able to witness people from similar backgrounds be successful, you can kind of see that switch flick like that. And you can see this idea of, okay, wait, somebody else, like somebody that looks like me, for example, is being successful in this role. Oh, look, that guy, he's from the same town as me, and he's been able to be successful. And it's not this God-given thing, which I think is an assumption that students fall into very, very quickly because of that lack of confidence.
Yeah. I guess what I was going to, because I was also thinking about what you said at the beginning as well, which is around should we the vocational route, which is they're not seen as valuable as the doctors, economists, the high status jobs. I guess there's two strategies here. One is we raise the level by which we treat those in vocational jobs, and we see them as equal valuable individuals as those who are academically gifted. But I don't think we can hold two. I don't think we can hold two in the same hand. I don't think we can apply the same strategy, and while still valuing, I guess, the high status roles and telling those individuals in low socioeconomic backgrounds that are deciding to go to vocational jobs, let's say, because they lack academic gifts or however we want to put it. Can we still, should we still be pushing them to do that, knowing that they will end up in a vocational role? It's kind of like, does it do the opposite? Does it demotivate them in some sense? Does it?
I would disagree, only because I think central within that argument is an idea that a vocation, like heading down a vocational route, leads to a career that is lesser than an academic career. And I think this is the issue. This is a central issue within the education system, right?
Yep.
And we've seen within our society, there are plumbers, there are lorry drivers, there are those that head down the vocational route and are making significant money and having their own impact on society in their own way, and are able to be successful through what they define as success. The key for the education system here is how do we have students understand, and I think this is going to go into a central belief of mine, is that I think all students have capability to be able to be successful in a field, whether it's academic, whether it's vocational. I think there is talent to be nurtured. So how do you unlock that talent, and then how do you steer them down a route that is going to be right for them without, and I guess this is your point, Tavian, forcing them down that route and saying, okay, because of your background, this is where you have to end up. It's more about letting the young person make that decision for themselves and then supporting when you can. But also, just before, I'd like Paul to come in on this next bit, but also it's partly about helping young people to make that decision and try to break this idea of apathy that's built up through lack of confidence, lack of self-belief, not being able to be all they can be through the education system. I think what's needed is a course correct there to say, okay, this, it's just one route that you're not going down. It doesn't mean that, you need to head down a route where, you're not going to be beneficial to society and you're going to be stuck in poverty and head into that cycle. No, there's alternative routes for
you. For me, I guess it's gonna sound harsh again. Can we take away? So I'm playing a little bit of advocate here because I definitely do agree with a lot of what you're saying as well. But can we take away from the fact that venture capitalists, let's say, just does create more benefit and just does create more economic resource for society and value for society than the plumber? And then does the child
plumber, the individual plumber?
Yeah, then the individual plumber, of course. Yeah, so it's individuals I'm talking about here, not whole markets. And then can we take away from that fact, and then also then can we then still make the child who's going to go down the vocational route from a low socioeconomic background not see that? Do you know what I mean? Are they not still going to realize and see that the person who did a degree, did an MBA, went into, and just accelerate, just take away earnings from it, not even talk about earnings, just as a pure as you said, just looking at pure value terms, are they still not going to see that in society, and could that not still damage their confidence in some way?
Potentially, I think, but I think the way to combat that is through enterprise, actually, and teaching young people entrepreneurial skills. The reason I say this is because in that scenario you laid out, the venture capitalist versus the plumber. If we're talking about value to society, if we're talking about the values to society of somebody that enters a venture capital firm, yeah, I agree with you. You're right. But if we'll take that same venture capitalist and measure it up against somebody that now owns a plumbing business, now they're serving whole communities. Earnings wise, they're earning a substantial amount, but value wise, now you're providing a service to the community on top of on top of whatever value you had as an individual plumber. So I think then we can start looking at level. And I'm not saying everybody can become a business owner, but having access to enterprise and having access to that entrepreneurial spirit, especially when we're living in the world of a gig economy, we're living in a world where you're more connected to a marketplace than ever. Giving people the tools to access that marketplace can act as a bit of a lever. You can be vocational and still have. You can apply enterprise to vocations just as well as you can apply the concept of enterprise through academia.
Yeah, I guess if so. I guess what you're trying to say is access to that. So I think that kind of comes back to the original point. I guess access to that knowledge, and being able to do that, is still key. I guess the sad thing is, I guess, which is what I'm trying to say. I don't think, unfortunately, I think education is the leveler in the ideal world. I think it is. But generally, just because of the way society is, and unfortunately, in those lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and I guess in where there's poverty, I think those individuals tend to they just naturally, well, sorry, not naturally, but their environment will make them have a certain perspective, which I guess does come back to, which is why I was going down that path, which is, do we take them out of that environment to help them with that perspective before it's too late? But then obviously, then whose responsibility does that come down to? I don't think it comes down to societies. I genuinely don't think it comes down to society at large, but I do think it comes down to, funny enough, I'm going to mention what I was talking about last week as well. I do think it comes down to the distribution by which we take from the most talented individuals in society. So the one venture capitalist who is creating a lot of value, he might not be able to distribute his resources in the best way. But if society is set up in a way such that one individual who is benefiting from the knowledge and just turning that knowledge into value much faster because of the education he has, because of the upbringing he has, because of the resource he has available to him, could we then change some of those environments that low socioeconomic individuals are in, to change that perspective that does end up leading to negative outcomes for society?
I think you've got it in one. I think, if someone's born into a lower socioeconomic background, there's minimal things you can do to change that environment. So if you're born, if you are born into poverty, there are some things you're going to have to accept just because of the way society is built. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head. How can we, I guess, harness the resources of those that are successful, whether they've come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds or not, and have them funnel back into those that, didn't have the same opportunities to try and inspire more and more. And I think this goes back to the point I made about taking young people that are lacking confidence and having them see people that have been successful, that have walked the same roads that they have. And part of that, and more than that, having people that believe in those young people. Just believing in someone really goes a long, long way. And I think for the cohorts of people that we're talking about, a lot of the times it's that belief that's missing. Maybe, at school, teachers don't have the same belief as they do the kids that are clearly naturally predisposed to being successful through their grades. And then maybe at home it's the same thing, where there is that lack of confidence, that lack of self-belief that that young person could be anything more than the area or the background that they've been brought up in. So maybe it is just about having, bringing people together that can believe in these young people.
When you say the students who are lacking belief, I think you're talking about a very specific group of people who want better for themselves but don't believe in themselves that they can get better, or are unsure of the means of how to get better. Does your same argument apply for those who aren't low in confidence? They just don't care at all about the situation.
I think it's the same thing. I think if you take the roadmap of somebody that ends up not caring about an education system, not caring about their future, their career, it all starts because of a lack of confidence. I don't believe that young people or anybody wants to be poor. I don't think anybody wants to be in a poverty situation. I think what happens is, for some young people, they perceive that getting out of poverty requires some special skill that they don't have, because they're seeing their peers that are on the pathway to success be on that pathway through what looks like to them, God-given skill and ability.
That's why I disagree with you, because I think there are some people who, not that they're happy to be poor, just that they're not willing to work hard. Like I mentioned to both of you before, I've experienced a situation in my secondary school where someone said their aim in life is to live on benefits. Right. Right. I kid you not, I heard those words come out of their mouth. Now, that's not them being low on confidence. That's not them wanting to find a way out. I'm not saying they're trying to, they want to be poor, but that's clear and obvious to the three of us, at least, and I hope to our viewers, that they just don't want to work hard. They want to claim benefits and they just want to sit at home and chill. And I'm saying, for someone like that, education isn't the answer. I don't know how to help someone like that, because I think you can give all the solutions the two of you have spoken about.
Yeah.
And to them, claiming benefits or going to the job centre once a week is actually better than anything the two of you have just said. What? Stop making me laugh. No, but I think it's true. I think if someone, I agree with both of you, especially Jake, on this, that if you, my main thing is that there has to be a want and a desire to succeed. And the education system should provide it for you if there's a desire to. There should be easy access to the information. Whether, and I'm not saying education system is perfect. I do agree they can teach us more about entrepreneurship, about handling money as adults, interest rates, all that type of stuff. 100% agree. But I'm saying that for the individual, I don't think it's society's responsible for the majority of individual people's success. I think individuals are responsible for their own success to a certain part. I'd say it's about 70-30 individual to society, right? Personally. And I think for most people, if they have a care and a want and a desire to succeed, that it's there for them. So the best example I can give is actually Tavian yourself. You previously told me that mathematics is your weakest subject. Was your weakest subject in school. You always preferred English and you hated doing maths. But then the moment you realized that people who study STEM subjects on average earn more, you decided to grind away at maths. And you did maths. You did very well at GCSEs. I think you got an A or an A star.
Yeah.
Then you went on, you did it at A levels, and you did a STEM subject at university, aeronautical engineering. Now you're an aeronautical engineer. You can, somewhat to some degree, you can say you've escaped the poverty trap, right? But that all stemmed from want and desire from within yourself. The same thing goes for you, Jacob. You were at a sixth form, you didn't perform well. Admittedly, they kicked you out. It wasn't your decision to leave. But that kicking you out and you still knowing I need to fix my life because I want better for myself. You went to the new sixth form, took A levels again, did better, went to university, didn't like it, found a new one, did better, applied for internships, applied for work placements, got this experience, that experience. Now, okay, you became a consultant, but you have so much experience, you're able to walk away from being a consultant and choose a career path that's more suited to your wants and needs. But to me, that all comes and stems from a desire and a want to succeed rather than the school system just mollycoddling us. I think the information can be there for us, but if someone doesn't want to read the brochure or attend an event on how to do public speaking or attend the careers day, or even as simple as your teacher has told you there's a program for year 12 students and you need to submit an application. Some people just listen to her and thought she was chatting waffle. They're not going to do the application. Even if they say it's paid, some people are like, oh, just can't be asked. And I've been a victim of this, like myself, desire. There was a time in my life when one of the biggest regrets in my life was I didn't correct something on a specific day just because I was busy playing football at lunch. All my friends went and fixed it. And let's just say their pathway was completely different to mine from that day. I could have gone with them. I forgot. They told me to go after school. And I just said, I'm not bothered that if I figure it out. I was completely wrong. That's, for me, my desire that day wasn't strong enough to want to do better. So now it made my journey longer in the future. That's where I think me and Jacob disagree on this. I do agree with you on some point. If there are people low in confidence but want to do better, I think, yes, the school should be able to provide it for them. And I think to some degree, the school system already does provide it for them, whether it's through university loans, even career projects. There's many projects across London. Just a few weeks ago, I went to this one called the Black Tech Fest, completely free to attend. All you have to do is sign up and attend. Don't get me wrong, I only went for 2 hours out of 3 days because I was sick. That's it though. But but people can go there, find out more about careers at an event like that. So that's why I say for me, desire comes before everything else Jacob has said.
Let me come back on this now. So the idea that, once and there's you need to want to be able to break the chains of poverty to be able to, I think is a nice idea in theory, but I think takes away from the reality of somebody living in a low socioeconomic background and the pressures that they have. If we're thinking of young people in general, we all, are that's a stage of life where, you want to be liked by your peers, you want, what's important to you is, feeling popular, feeling like, you have a place to belong, finding your own identity, and then think that's for every young person, no matter their circumstances. Then compound that with the idea that you're facing additional challenges, from being in a low socioeconomic background, lack of role models, lack of environment that's conducive to studying in some cases, lack of education within the home as well. When we're dealing when you're dealing with parents that may not understand an education system, what it takes to be successful here within the UK, not through any fault of their own, but because either they've come from another country where things are different, or they're British born, but even within their own education, they weren't taught. They didn't take in what it took to be successful. They've passed that on to their children. So I think part of it is being cognizant of the pressures on a young person and not, I guess, castigating someone for, I guess, essentially folding under all of those pressures. Somebody that ends up saying, oh, I just want to be on benefits, that's come about due to, I think, I think that's come about due to a young person, saying, all of these pressures it's too much for them to take and say, okay, I give up. Let me just take the easy option because of all of the pressures that are on them, compounded with a lack of confidence. And I
Mm.
think that lack of confidence is always going to be inherent within somebody that lands on the poverty line. I think the central thing for me is nobody wants to be poor. I don't believe that anybody wants to be in a situation where they don't have, where they don't have money to do the things that they want to do or have money to even meet their basic necessities. Because that's what we're talking about with people
Yeah,
that
but are they
on
willing
the
to put
poverty
in the
line.
effort to? Are they willing to put in the effort to escape that? It's like a rocket flying through space, right? The most amount of energy requires breaking from our stratosphere, the gravitational pull of Earth. After that, it doesn't take that much energy to actually glide through space. So, are they willing to put in that initial effort needed to break free of their environment and their, how should I put it, the beliefs that they've been brought up with, essentially?
But this is
Being a product of the environment. Are they willing to escape being a product of the environment?
But this is where it goes back to academia versus vocational, because a young person with the skills to be able to break out of they might have skills that could very well get them to break out of their environment. They could be an excellent photographer, for example. The problem is that's not rewarded within the education system. What's rewarded is academic talent. So if you don't have that,
I
you're
think that's because that's not
automatically
being an excellent photographer isn't rewarded in society as a whole. Like, how many photographers can there actually be? They get hired for weddings and special events, and
and
the elites get hired for artistic photo shoots, but you can't have the same amount of lawyers as photographers. Society wouldn't function. It doesn't make sense.
Mm.
I agree with you in theory. But I'm talking about, I guess I've used photography when I mean all vocations, right? Photography, plumbing, everything. There is nothing wrong with a young person not wanting a traditional academic career. I don't think
100% agree.
we should
I
castigate
agree.
young people that look at STEM subjects and the careers that lead from
Mhm.
STEM subjects and say, I don't think that is me. I want to go down a different path. The problem is we have an education system that doesn't inspire confidence in the young people that think that way. Because
You
if
know
you're
what?
looking at a young person that we seem to value success through grades. If young people aren't getting the grades that they deserve and are naturally feeling low in confidence because of that, because they see D's, E's, U's every year on their on their report cards, then I feel like we're going to end up in a place where they're going to say, I can't be bothered, let me just be on benefits because my skills aren't being appreciated and valued through the education system.
I was gonna jump in actually because this little seesaw, I think it's like between is the environment should we, Jacob's question, should we blame someone for buckling underneath the poverty that they're in, is actually a good one, because also because for me the question that, so from reading like Basic Economics from Thomas Sowell, he sort of highlights the point that there are many individuals that make it out of those poverty situations are extremely rare, but it's not because it's not just because they're rare, because they have a stat to their name that they went from a very low socioeconomic background to where they are today. That's quite a rare thing to do in terms of just an overall journey in general. But also they have rare qualities and characteristics that help them do that. So in some sense, should we blame someone for buckling under it? I actually agree with Jacob that the answer is no, we shouldn't actually blame someone for buckling under that situation. But it's also going back to Paul's point as well, that there is some sort of individual will and desire there. But then can we leave it all up to that if it's very rare for that to be done?
Here's why I say yes, because I'm not saying everyone has to go from low socioeconomic background to the higher class and getting those white collar jobs. I'm happily okay with people doing the blue collar jobs, plumbing, carpentry, tiling, all of that, right? Because if you have that as your actual job day to day, you're actually not going to be in the lower social class. You'll be in the working class. So I'm okay with that. My thing is that there are people who get to 16, 17, 18, and they know they're not academically gifted. They know that probably it's not best for them to pursue being a lawyer. But then what do they do next? Are they still focused on wanting, okay, I can't be a lawyer, I can't be an accountant, but I can be a plumber, I can be an electrician? Are they happy with that? And then do they go and pursue it, make a career for themselves, live well, have a decent income? Or do they just, I'll claim benefits, I'll do the odd stacking shelves at Tesco, da 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 da. That's where I disagree with you. 'Cause I'm with Jacob on the vocations should be respected. 100% agree. But first of all, does society respect it, which I think can be changed? But then now that's in front of some people, get put that on the table in front of them after the teachers like basically have spoken to them and said, okay, listen, look at your grades right now. I don't think trying to be accountants for you, your maths grades coming in at a D, and if you can't integrate, it's looking kind of rough. Okay. And then so now the teacher told him you might consider being a plumber and that. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna make enough bread. I'm not gonna be living the life I want. Okay, so what can you do to fix the life you want? Oh, I don't know. I'll figure it out. 5 years later, what are you doing? I'm still figuring out. I don't know. Have you gone to uni? No. Have you done any additional courses? No. What do you do? I stack shelves. Tesco.
Okay.
Or like for me that is a lack of wanting to do better, wanting to make sure you have a stable income every month.
Okay. But hold on, because part of what you've said is at 16, 17, 18, that's when the conversations about career are being happening. When all young people have things they like from a very young age. All young people. Doesn't matter where it is. A young person might be skilled with a camera. Young person might be, a great speaker. They might be funny. They might be able to sing. Doesn't matter what it is, right? All young people have some sort of like that comes out very young. The issue is only certain interests of young people are nurtured through the school system. And that's if they fall into STEM, if they fall into, something academic like politics or history, that's when it's nurtured. But when it's something outside of that, then it's not nurtured. And then you get to the point where it's 16, 17, the teacher's looking at the grades and saying, oh, well, this career isn't going to be suitable for you. By 16, it's already too late. I'm saying intervention should be happening much well before that. When you're crossing that border into secondary school, or even before then, that's when you need to get young people confident and believing that they can achieve something with their interests. Because I tell you what, in the private schools, that's what's happening. Doesn't matter about, the young people that aren't, not every young person that goes to a private school is going to be, top of the line aiming for the academic careers. But those that aren't are still supported into being able to be successful because they're instilled confidence through that school system. I'm saying that's not happening in the public school system, and that's where you get to a point, it's 16, 17, 18, young person said, they've had enough. They're saying, I don't know, my teacher's telling me I'm not going to be successful. 5 years later, they're stacking shelves at Tesco. That's how that happens.
I think the ability to have that conversation in year 7 when you're 11 or 12, crossing into secondary school, I honestly think that's a luxury for the people who are already rich. I don't think that, personally, I am the belief that there are some things that people in the higher class get access to, and that the kids get access to, and they might actually just deserve it. That's just their lifestyle. We don't have access to that. I think if you're in our situation, your number one focus should be, I need money. I don't want to live like my parents. I don't live like my grandparents. I need money.
I think.
Should
I think, yeah. No, go on. Go on. You want to finish it or?
No, I'm done.
Hold on. I'm going to say one thing and then Tavian jump in. So I guess within that argument, we're saying that if you're coming from a low socioeconomic background, you've only got one way out, and that's because your parents are poor. Tough, deal with it. Is that the tactic we're going to be saying?
I think that's life.
Yeah.
Low key, yeah. No, low key, yeah. I think that some there are many things like that. It's like in school, there are kids who go on holidays 3-4 times a year, living life, getting great life experiences. I'll be to Switzerland, went skiing this year, going to Dubai next year, Thailand next year, Brazil in 2 weeks. All right. Where did you go on holiday? Cornwall. What should the school do? What should the government do? Create a fund so all kids get to go to Abu Dhabi once a year to experience life.
Absolutely not. But
Yeah.
I think the difference between holidays and a career is I don't think you should be stifling the interest of young people just because they're coming from a low socioeconomic background and they're saying, well, my interests aren't, high finance. I think perfectly fine. I don't think having different interests is a privilege we should reserve for the rich. Essentially.
But I do agree with you. But I think as it's going back to that point of, first of all, it's probably once again, the way we think, it's probably very much a 1% rare, very much anomaly that we're all here right now, right? Like, so I do agree with Jacob that actually people that come from our types of backgrounds, the stats are quite clear. We probably shouldn't be sitting here talking like this. That's number one. So we can agree that we're probably anomalies. But should we, again, I'm not sure now that I'm here. If I was a young kid, I look back to myself, I was really interested in football. A teacher may be nurturing that thought of I could be a football player or I could do something in sport or whatever. Understanding that where I'm from and the poverty situation that I'm actually in, trying to nurture me into an interest that has a very unlikely chance of success could demotivate me more. And that's
Thank you.
That's my point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because if you play the numbers game, what your teacher did and encouraging you to be an engineer has increased your chance of escaping poverty, and you've done it rather than being a footballer.
Can I come back?
Thank you.
Can I come back? So my comeback to that is I'm not saying that young people should be encouraged into careers where there's only you have to be the best of the best to make it. That's being a football player.
But that's a kid's dreams, though.
Hold on. Being a football player, you need to be the best of the best. To have a career in football, in the football industry, you do not need to have God-given talent. You just need to understand that there are careers in the football industry that don't mean being a football player. Being a journalist, being in and around.
You still have to go to
business.
University for that. You still have to study English literature, English language. To be a data analyst for the football, you still have to be a data engineer. You still have to study the code and stuff.
But do you see a young person that just likes football and isn't interested in school and isn't making that connection? That you can be a data analyst, you can be part of the football world, and isn't making the connection to, that's why academia is important. Make that connection, then you've got a young person that's engaged and that's thinking, okay, now I know why. Now I know a potential career for me, and now I know why I can engage in academia. Then you've got a confidence level up.
I see that. I agree.
I definitely see that. I think obviously because we're coming up to the hour now. I think like 100%. I can definitely see like both your sides. I do think though that being in a poverty situation and actually making it out is somewhat of an anomaly in the first place. I think that, and I guess Jacob's point is we should try and make that less of an anomaly, and everything that we can do to do that is beneficial. And I think education would be, I do agree that education is the leveler for that. But I don't think we can take away from the fact that there is a uniqueness to the individual who lives in that situation to actually want to and have the desire to actually make it out and actually does. I think there is a uniqueness to that individual.
What
I
is the uniqueness? Is the uniqueness in itself the desire to want to escape poverty? Because if that's the
no,
uniqueness,
no.
I agree.
Um, oof, is the uniqueness the
I
desire to?
think I also think this is something we haven't touched on yet, but our parents play a big part in it.
Mm,
As I said on the podcast before, my parents moved to the UK solely for a better life for me. Without me, they'd have stayed in my home country. So I always had that pressure since I was 4 years old that I need to want something better than the
mm,
situation, the life that I lived, and that's urged me and pushed me on. I know that's roughly the same for you, Tavian. I know your family
mm,
very well, and so the pressure came from our parents. Initially, when we were too young to understand it for ourselves, our parents made sure they pushed us. That happens with a lot of immigrants. And you see a lot of immigrants come here and their kids do very, very well. So why is that? And that to me stems from desire. It does come from desire from the parents initially, but then as you nurture and mature, that want and desire does come for yourself. By the time you turn 18, 19, you realize, oh yeah, I can do these things. I want these things. When you're 11 and 12 and you want to kick ball in the park, I can understand then it's a bit harder for you. So your parents have to push you. Parents say, come in, do
mm,
your homework. It's time. It's 10 o'clock. Go to bed. You need to sleep. You need your 8 hours.
mm.
You know,
But
I
one,
got
yeah,
gone.
no. I was going to say one thing. Like going back to Thomas Sowell, but one thing he does mention as well with the immigrants that come here and actually do really well in every country, immigrants that tend to move, they tend to do like significantly better than the kids in school. He said it also could be put down to uniqueness of perspective, which is something we actually take for granted. So, for example, someone who was born in the UK into poverty, and maybe their parents was as well, their perspective is completely different to someone who moved from a different country and came in and maybe living in a poverty situation as well. And that change of mindset is actually quite key because if they've always been like this is what I'm saying, that recursive model of poverty, if they've always been in that
Yes.
situation, then it is much harder than for someone who's maybe come from the Caribbean, let's say, rested in, I don't know, East London, in the gut of East London, let's say. And then it's actually a very different perspective, that they don't know what Tesco is, let's say.
Like the key
Things
thing
are,
you just
yeah.
said, the key thing you just said, that change in mindset. And
Mm,
that is what I agree on, the change in mindset. And that mindset to me is a want for better, desire
But
to be better.
but hold
And
on,
that's
but
why
hold
I
on,
think it's very important.
hold on. But
mm,
I think what Tavian's mentioned here is the person that's from the UK that is trapped in that cycle of poverty. It's not their fault that they're not instilled with the mindset of someone that's come from another country to the UK
mm,
with the ideas of having a better life,
Yeah.
and their parents have
yeah.
instilled them with the idea you are here for a better life. You need to have that in the back of their mind.
Mm,
But it's not the
Yeah.
fault of a child that's brought up in a British family that doesn't have those values simply because of their parents and the generations before. I don't think that's the fault of the young person if they're not
yeah.
instilled with that mindset, which is where, and I think we come back to the central argument, an education system can act as that leveler. No matter what, if your parents haven't stepped in to help you with that confidence and with that mindset, that's where the education system, I think, should be able to act as that leveler to step
Mm.
in.
But I actually want. I know this is another podcast probably. Does but does the education system actually instill that mindset? Does the education system actually instill a mindset for ambition and drive? And that's where I think Paul's individual argument kind of comes in. Does like even if the education system acts as the perfect leveler, do we just naturally have individuals who will just naturally work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and will just that's just a drive that they have. They're just naturally more talented.
Mm.
And then how do we account for that? Because even if we do have this leveler, unfortunately those individuals are just always going to outperform. They're always going to be at the top of the list. Even if they don't have the grades for plumbing, or sorry, even if they don't have like the academic resume for a plumber might still look at their CV to hire them because they're just that they're just that much more talented.
Hmm.
And I think that's where that's going into the details, I think, of the overarching education as a level, I think, which is it's a very interesting conversation though. It's a very interesting conversation.
I want to not preface, but I do want to like say before we finish, I do agree education is the great leveler. When I was a kid, I had a quote in my room that was from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was on an episode where Will Smith was studying, and it fades to black and he puts the quote on the screen, right? It says, education is the passport to the future, or the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. That quote is by Malcolm X. So I have it memorized by heart because it's something that I hold true and dear. It's beautiful. So I do believe education is the great leveler and it can help everyone. Are you going to school to bust jokes with your friends or to get good grades? Are you actually focusing? Are you focusing on the Pokemon on your phone? That's my question.
Pokemon.
Yeah. When you go home, are you doing your homework? Are you watching Kim Kardashian? What are you doing right now? Are you playing COD for 4 hours? Or did you do your spelling that your teacher asked? You're in set 4, you can't spell, but you're busting COD 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's stuff like that is what I mean by the want to do better. Because if you just do the bare minimum, I'm actually convinced you do the bare minimum that your teacher asked for. Your grades, for most people, your grades still come out decent. I'm not saying anyone should know for 100% certain at 16, 17, 18 that they should know what they want to do for the rest of their life, right? You can take time to develop that. What I'm saying is, you go to school, you get your education, and the education makes sure that you have enough doors open so that when you figure out what you do want to do, the door's open. Jacob, you go into consultancy.
Hold on. So
I think we do have to wrap it up though, guys. We are going a bit over. We do have to wrap it up. But yeah, go on.
Final thought is very, very quickly. It's that and I'm going to leave you with this question. It's that idea. Are we really saying that the education system is opening doors? Or are we saying for some people, the way the education system is built in a way that people are coming through with low confidence. They're seeing that teachers aren't believing them. They're seeing their low grades. They're seeing they're not academic. And then they're ending up on a pathway that leads them to a belief that they can't make it. And the best that they can do is poverty. I think that's the model that our education system is built on. And that's the fundamental thing that we need to change if we're going to get young people away from this mindset of being stuck in poverty and towards actually contributing to society.
Right. You know, I think we'll end it for today. I think there'll be a part 2. If Jacob be happy, if you have to come back, there'll be a part 2.
More than happy to. I love having these conversations.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thanks for listening. If you did listen for this long, we do really appreciate our listeners, and definitely comment below what you think about education being the great leveler and how we can build a society such that everyone has equal access to that education and can become something that they want to. So thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Paul. And we'll see you next time.
No worries.